Time for another update. We were out on vacation last week, but in the last 2 weeks, I've done about a week's worth of work. Did a lot of reading, making lots of progress with chapter 7. Did a few more problems, finished chapter 5, and started problems in chapter 6, very briefly. And they're pretty straightforward. So actually, chapter 6 is going to be a lot of fun. So that's for that. And then going to the book, it took a while for me to finish off chapter 5. Turned out to be more difficult than as difficult as I expected it, perhaps a little more. Anything having to do with series always kicks my butt. Same thing happened with Wait chapter 4. So Saff and Snider chapter 5 is that story. Lots of details, lots of ways to get things wrong with a series. Very interesting, of course, because you want to make sure that you have a 1 over z value, and if you have a 1 over z value, then you get a result. If not, you don't. Very interesting. Ways to do quotients. Yeah, so I learned a lot, but point at infinity, I understood the concept. I understood the easy part of the concept. When I got to the problems, I struggled. I did struggle to the point where I sacrificed 3A, problem 3A of section 5.7. I looked at the answer, and I still didn't fully understand how to get the next one. So this is a revisit later. Ask somebody, hey, how do I really do all these point at infinity problems? The examples were straightforward, and all the examples that I found on the web were limit-based, which is the easiest part of the problems. Once you get into harder problems, then I struggled. Analytic continuation, I know it's an important subject. I also struggled with this section. So really, Lorentz series is where I really cranked it out, looked things up, figured it out. Then, latter part of the chapter, I could have done better. I'm still debating about what I want to do after complex analysis. Part of me wants to do linear algebra, abstract algebra in sequence, but part of me wants to do yet another complex analysis book because Saff and Snider has been great in learning the basics, but it hasn't been deep enough for me to understand things at a deeper level. I also want to understand branch cuts and branch points better. And now that I have struggled with the latter part of chapter 5, I have another set of subjects, analytic continuation, point at infinity, and I want to do more series work also. Now, entering chapter 6, chapter 6 has been beautiful, way easier than chapter 5. Residues theory is very straightforward. You just have formulas for residues. You have to remember that if they give you the integral, you have to multiply it by 2 pi I. It's really the a minus 1 term in a Lorentz series. Really clean, really clean. As a matter of fact, problem 1, all these problems of section 6.1, I think I did all of these problems in like 5 minutes tops. You're just doing a lookup. And you know if it's got a derivative, if it's got a power, like if it's z minus pi to the third, you know you got a second derivative. And if it's 1 over z squared, you know you got a first derivative. And if it's just z, it's just a plain old residual. So the way it works out is really straightforward. I had already read a lot of chapter 6, and I'll show it. I'll show my notes, even though there's nothing profound about me showing that, because it's just a retelling of whatever's in the chapter. And although not shown here, I'm well into chapter 7 reading. I think I'm about halfway through, a little kind of tail end, 60%, 70%. I still only have the application sections at the end of chapter 7 to read. And then after that, all there is left is chapter 8 and an appendix. So I'm, just making a lot of progress. That's great. Then when it comes to the notebook itself, again, just as I was mentioning before, let me plug in the power to this thing, because then I can view it better. And maybe I don't run out of power. There we go. So then, yeah, that's better for me to view it. You guys are not seeing this. You couldn't tell the difference, but the little viewer that my camera has, if it's not connected to power, I can barely see what I'm doing, what I'm showing. So even though the book was clear. So yeah, this is the, I need to understand essential singularities better. I don't, I mean, I get it. It's a singularity that repeats itself, like I say, like a sine or an e to the I, something that has a cycle where you don't just get one value, one pole or 1 0. I get that part, but then in the case of the problems, no, I gotta redo some of them. Some things I got right, some things I got wrong, some things I got right, some things I got wrong. Still don't understand why I got that wrong. Some I got wrong, some I got right. Again, it was not, the latter part of chapter 5 was a bloodbath as far as I'm concerned, because I like to get most of the questions right. I did get one right, but that was it in section 5.8, the problems. Yeah, I'm missing something, and I gotta go back and redo this, and I think that tells me I don't understand the subject at a deep level. As I don't know, I don't want to say that I understood real analysis with weight at a deep level, but in that book I had very few sections where I encountered what just happened to me at the end of chapter 5. Yes, I understand it. I got some problems right. I wanted to get more problems right. So something is telling me that I need to just do another cycle of complex analysis with another book. That's what I think I'm leaning towards, even though I really, and I'll say 20 reallys, want to do some linear algebra, I want to do some abstract analysis. But anyways, so chapter 6 reading, straightforward, very straightforward. I don't like to use the word easy, but boy, this chapter just flew. You know, I just understood concepts. I could see how things were derived. I could work them out by myself, work out a couple of the steps that were not in the book. Although this book really covers most of the steps that it does, which I really like. I only wish Saff and Snider had more theoretical stuff, and also I can already see that the branch points and branch cuts part, I think, at least for me, I would have loved like a whole section with more examples and even more problems. And in the case of point and infinity, analytic continuation, I think the book is missing 1 or 2 more examples and maybe a paragraph or 2 explaining the concept. But chapter 6 reading was just done, right? And yeah, so I started working on chapter 6 problems. I made a small mistake here, but other than that, yeah, I got them. And I haven't graded question 3. That's my progress.